Okay, this was our quiz we were working on a few days back. I just want to go through some of these with you guys. So what are some easy mistakes to make and some things to watch out for? So first off, factor. Remember, this means two numbers that multiply to give me negative 24, but they add up to negative 10. So it could be 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Those are all the factors of 24, but they multiply to negative, which means one of them is positive, one of them is negative. Look, they add up to a negative, which means the bigger one has got to be negative. Hang on, 2 and 12, there it is. So positive 2, negative 12. So I can either decompose this, or we know that this is a quick, easy trinomial, because x squared's got to be x and x, so which means it's got to be plus 2 and minus, so plus 2 minus 12. This one, not so easy. Same idea, but this one I have to do it by decomposition because it's got a 2 here. It's not just x and x. No. So once again, two numbers that multiply to negative 24, but they add up to positive 5. They add to positive 5. Hang on. That's these ones. 8 and negative 3, because they multiply to a negative, which means one's positive, one's negative. So it's got to be positive 8 and negative 3. Those are my two magic numbers. So the center decomposes into those two. So here's where I go. I'm going to go 2x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 12. These two have x in common. X bracket 2x minus 3. These two have 4 in common. Positive 4 bracket 2x minus 3. There it is. See the 2x minus 3? So that's one of my factors. And the other one is x plus 4. X plus 4. There is no shortcut. This is the short. You have to do decomposition. This one, there was a shortcut because it was a 1x squared. I know that that's going to be x and x. So I can just guess the other two, and that's what they were. This one is not a trinomial. Oh man, what is it? But it's 2 bracket x squared minus 9. Oh yeah, factor out the 2. Now notice this is a square minus a square. It's a difference of two squares. So it's going to be x plus 3, x minus 3. Oh, and don't forget, I had the 2 out front. Okay, what about this one? This is a square minus a square. Yeah, this is x squared squared. This is 25 squared. Okay, so it's going to be x squared plus 25 and x squared minus 25. Now, recognize this. This is a difference of squares as well. X plus 5, x minus 5. What about this one? Oh, it's just x squared plus 25. This one doesn't break down. It's not a difference. Remember, it has to be a difference because positive times negative would give me negative. This one doesn't break down at all. This is done. Now, notice with these ones, I factored them. I broke them into their factors, brackets, 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 and I stopped. That's it. I'm not solving. Now for B, or for question number 2, careful. Now this is where it says solve. So in other words, I'm looking for x equal to something. Okay, that's a solution. These are not solutions. These are just brackets. Don't go into one step too far saying x is equal to negative 2. No, it's not. That's wrong. These are the factors. Stop here. Don't say x equal to. But now for question number 2 where I'm solving, now I do want to solve. Okay, now this thing, I can move that over here. And look, we get x squared plus x minus 56 is equal to 0, right? As soon as I move it all over to the same side. Now this I can factor. Two numbers multiplied to 56. I know it's got to be 8 and 7. So x, hang on, plus 8 or minus 8? The bigger one's got to be positive. Plus 8 and x minus 7. Now, this is wrong because what am I missing? Equal to 0. That's the important part. Because here I'm using the 0 factor problem. Oh yeah, so this thing equals 0 or if that thing equals 0. Now look, if x plus 8 equals 0, that means x equals negative 8. Think about it. I'm going x plus 8 equal to 0. I'm going minus 8 to both sides, right? That's really what I'm doing. Just think of it. I know it switches. X minus 7 is equal to 0. That means x is equal to positive 7. So there's my two answers. Now, I don't stop it at the factors. Now I'm actually solving. So now I want to go that final step. If you're solving, now you're actually going to solve. X equal to. Okay, so completing the square. Okay, this one was a few steps. Now notice the 3, 6, and the 102. They're all divisible by 3. So I could factor it out, but you know what? It's easier. Both sides equal to, well, 0 is equal to 0. 0 divided by 3, still just 0. This makes this x squared plus 2x minus 34. Now, that makes some way easier numbers to use. Now, if I'm completing the square, I mean I need to have a perfect square, a trinomial. This is not the right number. So you know what? Let's move it over. Move it over to the other side. Make it positive 34. x squared plus 2x. Now, I need something here in order to make it a perfect square. Remember, if this is a 1, and it is, I start with the second number, b, go divide by 2, square it. Divide by 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1. I need a 1. But here's the thing. If I go plus 1, then I need to go minus 1. This way I've added on 0. Now, I know that in the next step is going to move over to the other side. It's going to become positive 35. And this becomes x squared plus these 3. This makes a perfect square. 1, and it's plus, x plus 1. Now, I'm like 2 steps away from the end. But now that I've got it as a square, I can do the plus or minus the square root of both sides, right? So in other words, x plus 1 is equal to the square root of 35. Now, it's not a very nice number. Oh, what did I forget? I forgot a plus or minus. Because remember, when you're doing the square, it could be plus or it could be minus. Now, let's take this 1 and we'll move it over. And we're going to put it in front here. So this becomes minus 1, plus or minus the square root of 35. So now I'm just going to turn it into a decimal. So negative 1 plus the square root of 35 is 4.92. Or if I do minus, I'm going to get negative 6.92. Negative 6.92. Remember, it said go to 2 decimal places, and that 916 becomes a 92. Okay, let's try the back. What do we got? Now it says solve using the quadratic formula. Now, before I do that, remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c must be equal to 0. This thing's not equal to 0. So my first step is I need to take this 1 and move it over to the left-hand side. That becomes minus 1 minus. This becomes minus 1 is equal to 0. There we go. Now I can see a, b, and c. A is 3. B is 5. C is 1. Oh, sorry, minus 1. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There we go. So negative b is negative 5. Negative 5 squared. Don't put down negative 25 because I know that 5 times 5 is, no matter what it is, it's always positive. This is positive 25. I don't even think about the negative or any of that stuff. It's always got to be positive. Minus 4 times a. A is 3. And c is minus 1. Oh, this is going to make it minus minus. In other words, this becomes 12 minus minus 12. This is going to be 25 plus 12. Oh, sorry, I forgot all over 2 times 3. So this becomes, what do we got? Minus 5 plus or minus. This becomes the root of 37 all over 6. Okay, so I got to plug those in. Here we go. Minus 5 plus the square root of 30. What was it? 37. So figure that out. Then go divide by 6. Because I have to combine these two first. So it's 0.18. 0.18. Okay, let's do it again. So minus 5, now I'm going to go subtract the square root of 37. Then I'm going to go divide by 6. So negative 1.85. Typically, a 3-mark question like this, you're going to get 1 mark for figuring that out right, 1 mark for simplifying it down to here, and then like half and half each. So 1, 2, there's my 2 answers. So if I messed up here and I forgot about the minus, and if I put it as a plus, that one's off, but you're still going to get 2.5 out of 3. Okay, last one. X squared plus 6x plus a half. Okay, so, or no, not 6x. This is x over 6. I got fractions. Now, I could use fractions. A is 1, B is 1/6, C is 1/2 if you really like fractions. Or, you know the whole point of having an equation equal to 0? Times both sides by 6, because that gets rid of both of these fractions. Okay, 6 times x, 6x squared. 6 times 6, well, hang on, 6x over 6, that just becomes 1x. Yeah, that's why I multiplied by 6. 6 times a half, that's 3. 6 times 0, 0. So you know what? I have different numbers, but it's really still the same equation. It's just in a different form. Now I can plug it into the quadratic formula. Okay, here we go. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Another mistake people like to make, they do this over 2a. Yeah, that's wrong, because the entire thing, this has to be over all of it, the entire thing. Make sure you use a nice big line so we know the entire thing. That's giving me the big hint. I got to do this part first. Then I go divide by 2a. Okay, so let's do it. Negative b negative 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 1 squared, minus 4 times 6 times 3, all over 2 times 8. So 2 times 6. Okay, so this is going to be negative 1 plus or minus the square root of, this is 1, take away 24 times 3 is 72. 1 minus 72, hang on, that's negative. That's like negative 71. All over 12. This is the square root of negative 71, which means there is no real answer. There is an imaginary one, but not a real one. I just have to stop at this point. Once I know that this is the square root of negative 71, I can just stop and say, I know there's no answer. Really, what I just figured out was the discriminant. Oh yeah, the discriminant is minus 71. Okay, so this one I think I made it with 2 marks. 1 for knowing that there was no answer because you ended up with a negative, and 1 for actually getting to the negative 71. Now, I think some people might have blown it and, oh, I messed up here and you got like negative 51. But you know what? I'd still give you 1 because you know that there's no answer. 2 marks, 3 marks, and what do we have on the front? This one we made it 3 marks. This one I made it 2 marks, 1 for the correct factoring, and then 1 for the actual answers, half and half. And then the correct factoring, you got to factor this thing. It's solved by factoring. So this is a 2-mark question. I think I made this with 1, 1, 1, and this one was 2 because you had to do the decomposition. That's the first step. So 1 mark for figuring out that it's got to be minus 3x and positive 8x, and then 1 mark for actually factoring it down to here. And yeah, don't go too far and say, oh, x is equal to negative 4, because it's not. This is what it is factored. And then the same way, this one is just right or wrong. This is a very, very typical one. Anytime you see a higher power, like x to the power 4, expect a second step. This one factors into a difference of squares, right? And then into the last one. Alrighty. All good questions you would definitely see on a test.